conception, um, and also conceiving children. The act of conception of the child is via Janus. Um, so this God is all encompassing in everything, and goes way back further than you would realize. So, have you got anything else to add to that, Meten? Are you quite happy with that? Um,
I want to add that there's layers and layers of myth that go with this that this is symbolic of.
yeah,
Even in human design, there's this story of Sirius A being exploited by Sirius B and fed upon like a parasite. And this corresponds to the story of Gaia being fed off of by Janus and Cronus, or the varied image here, these variations of Janus, correct, Gary?
yeah, yeah.
And
I mean, Janus is a bit of a chameleon because Janus is also the patron or the saint of, or the god of actors. And we know that actors put on many faces to play many different roles.
the whole metaphor of acting represents a type of falsity, right? A Neptunian illusion of not being as you present. And it also replicates the whole idea of all the science fiction, all the modern science fiction stories, which talk about an enemy that just replicates itself over and over again and just has multiple faces, but no source that you can really get at, no center that you can grasp and hold at. So a kind of copycat mechanism, a kind of soulless copycat mechanism. And I wanted to say it's also prevalent, this idea here of Gaia and the Archontics. This is prevalent in the work of John Lamb Lash because he has this idea from the Gnostic books of the Sophia, of Sophia being the aeon who, and forgive me if I'm messing it up, but the aeon that created this earth and somehow accidentally also created the archons, who, by the way, who never are able to just have their own space. Because a lot of the talk that Lamb Lash talks about is like Sophia is happy to have the archons have their little realm where they could survive and, do what they want to do. But the issue is they're never like that. They have no sense of boundaries. And so they attempt to curtail and replicate themselves to the point where they just cover everything, kind of like cockroaches, right? They want to take over all of the territory. They can never just stay in a contained territory. So, and I shared with Gary that like we got to start with this image again because we gave everyone grounding with this image because it's just so rich with the whole story of humanity in whatever variation you want to tell it. Very even more myths from different cultures just share kind of the same similar initial beginning story. So that's all, Gary.
Yeah, no, I mean it's brilliant. I mean, and I will be talking as we go on about the male and female and the male and male because Janus is both. So Janus is portrayed as a male and a male and a male and a female, and the male and the female is particularly interesting um, because it has other names and other connotations. So I just want you guys to understand that we're talking a chameleon, and obviously a male and a female being in the same body is the pansexual, and we see many of those um, agendas being pushed to this day, and it's by no mistake. It's by no mistake. So this is really pretty zodiac signed. You know, 12 signs, beautiful, and at face value. You know, and again, I'm not knocking the zodiac. I'm not knocking astrology or anything like that at all. What we're looking at, as Meten quite rightly said, is the multi-dimensional layers of somebody's personality that is being placed on this at different levels of um, skullduggery. Let's put it that way. This is smoke and mirrors. This is a control mechanism by stealth, and the zodiac and the way it works is an amazing thing. And I take my hat off to those that can read it and do it, because it really is something that's worth following, because it's so correct, or just like human design is. It pinpoints stuff and brings up certain energies and nuances so very, very clearly that there has to be more to it, and there has to be reasons behind this more to it. And this is what I'm going to try and look at as we go through. Um, Thoughts on that, Meten? Are you happy with that?
I like how I want to add how I like how the constellations for each sign are added, or for each planet. I guess it's both planet and sign. I mean, I
Yeah,
like that for the imagery. I don't know about the any,
yeah, yeah. It's beautiful imagery, isn't it?
but yeah, that's really cool. And then
We have the moon in its different phases here,
the
and
planetary bodies
this,
with the
yeah, the
sun.
sun in the middle, and the cross is the earth, isn't it?
Oh yeah, the signs, the boxes. There's the symbols right
Yeah,
there, and then
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah,
the outer image then is the rulership of those particular signs, the
yeah,
planetary
yeah, yeah.
symbolism.
So obviously this is Gemini, the twins, two faces looking apart from each other, and that's Janus. Simple as. And we know Janus is the god of doorways, the twin pillars, and here we have a doorway. And so some of the signs are very obvious who would be behind it. And we'll go into this in more detail in the future as we go through, um, because obviously Janus has many connotations and many different faces, from being Pan, Baal, Moloch. So we're looking at the bull symbology,
For Taurus.
Taurus the bull,
And the
and we're looking at the ram.
bull has layers of mythic resonance, especially from this book here.
Yeah,
There's just layers of it.
yeah,
The bull.
and the ram. Um, if you look into Janus, because January is named after Janus, and the 1st of January is letting in the new year and getting rid of the old, which is just classic Janus mythology and control mechanism. But on the 6th of January, um, a ram is sacrificed in the honor of Janus, or was during Roman times. So again, this all links into a different kind of layer or level of this overriding Janus mythology over the top of. And they're just two very simple examples that I'm going to give now, and we'll go into them a little bit deeper. So again, Ten, if you got anything to add, just shout, and I'll be quiet. But I
La
think as
last
you go on,
last thing is just that Gemini symbolism for Janus. It's real important right now because Uranus has just entered Gemini as of July 8th, July 7th. And so that energy is very potent right now. So that's all.
yeah, 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 and again, we have an X here, which is very interesting. We have twin lines, twins again. Um, the scales, duality, the 6 and the 9, which is it's almost a yin and a yang. The Pisces. So there's a lot going on that when we start peeling the layers off, we can kind of see the symbolization of. Now, something that I wanted to talk about is how the planets and how human design works. And basically, we have retrograde, which is a downward spiral of energy, and brain's gone again with the when it's actually there. It's
Station when it's just there, present. Yeah. When it
present. That's it. Present. Terrible. So the upward spiral of energy would be present where the planetary body or the energy symbol from that planet would be given an upward spiral of energy, and in retrograde it's removing. And we also have multiple levels of this energy frequency in the way that those luminaries luminaries give off their light on how it affects the human body, our birth signs within the sign and within the human design concept. Again, Meten, thoughts on that one?
Well, yeah, I mean it's so interesting in astronomy, the concept of the planets moving direct, in direct motion occurs relative to the specific planets in relationship to the sun's light. So it's real important how the distance from a planet from the sun and the cycles it creates in relationship to the sun, especially the Venus star point, which creates a point in its cycle every 8 years relative to a star that it creates around and with the sun, with its movements. And so planets gain power when they're direct and they're moving at full speed. Planets lose power when they're going retrograde and they're moving at slower speeds away from the light of the sun. And so there's all these, I'm not going to go into, the full astronomy of it,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
there's all this like layers in relation, when a planet, conjuncts the sun, gets cazimi with the sun exactly, like it's a complete destruction of the planet, and all you have is its spiritual essence before it's reborn and goes direct, right through, right outside of that sun conjunction and moves forward. And then sometimes planets will station, like it's going retrograde, it's going direct, and then it stations to go the opposite way, but it could take a couple days before it actually starts to move again. And so there's a lot of layers to this, but it's very fascinating because, as me and Gary wanted to talk about a little, is like each planet rules a different experience of temporality. And all the major 7 planets rule the temporality of this kind of Saturnian third density realm. And outside of that layer of Saturn, we have the invisible planets, the planets that are not visible to the naked eye, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, which definitely represent the experience of time on additional layers. I like to say, like outside Uranus, we experience, when you're in a car accident or something, when you leave your body, you start to everything goes in slow motion because you're perceiving through your soul, your spirit, your higher self, and it's perceiving time in such a way where it's it's reduced to seeing not in seconds but in milliseconds. So that's why time might appear slow, or just like different states of consciousness in Neptune, have different sorts of temporal awareness. And with Pluto as well representing more fractal consciousness. It's just so interesting. I'm just touching on that for a
Yeah,
minute,
yeah,
but
yeah.
those spirals that Gary's showing, I mean, that affects our perspective of space and time, and how space and time are kind of mirrors of each other, how we experience them. They each affect, and
Yeah.
that affects our consciousness and how we perceive.
I mean, you could almost draw the infinity eight around this, and it would give you the yin and the yang almost, and it would give you the two polar opposites of the infinity. If you could imagine that infinity loop. And so these concepts are in everything that we affects our lives and everything we do externally and internally. So the external would be the zodiac signs, what planets are present or in retrograde, and also how it's affecting the internal with the human design via, you know, which gates you've got and where it's triggering. And it really is very multi-dimensional.
Another, I guess a basic way to say it too is like, not all planets obviously go retrograde. The sun doesn't go retrograde, but all the other planets do. The moon doesn't go retrograde either. It just goes void of course. But the other planets all go retrograde. And when the real definition of retrograde is just they're opposite the sun. So they go into a polarity with the sun. They're like furthest away from the sun. And that's real interesting because it's like the planet is reassessing itself. The planet is like, having its time to itself to decide where it wants to go next because it's moving backwards. It's pondering things. It's reflecting. Okay, where do I want to go next? What's happened? So it's just fascinating.
Yeah, yeah. But I just wanted to make the Femi, the beautiful viewers watching, just to understand the concept. And sometimes it's easier just to see something. You can go, oh yeah, upwards, downwards, high mood, low mood, what's affecting me, and it's the light levels. It's multi-dimensional. And so what we're talking about and what I'll be talking about is multi-dimensional. There's no right or wrong as such. It's just the way my research has led me and to what I see. So this is a very interesting bit of research I did when I was looking at Masonic symbology, and it's the gateway of man, and also how we leave as as gods,
Sharing this?
gateway of gods.
I don't see it.
Huh?
Are you sharing this?
Yeah, can you stop see it?
I don't see it.
Let me stop share. Start again.
There's going to be all kinds of like technical stuff. I had already pressed record, but on the bottom it wasn't showing recording. So a lot of technical, with retrograde. Now I
Yeah.
see it. Now I see it.
No, you see it? Super. Thank you for that. Again, I've had this issue before with this where it's just stopped sharing. So again, this message clearly is not wanting to be got out by somebody. But in Masonic um, teachings, the human soul or spirit comes in through Cancer, which is the 69 or the yin and the yang, and we obviously go all the way round. But at the point in which we leave, we go through Capricorn. And Capricorn is very interesting because Capricorn is part goat and it's got the tail of a snake, hasn't it, fundamentally? And that represents Janus as well, which is very interesting, you know. So the symbology of the cancer of the crab, and also cancers in the beehive nebula, which is the call it the capstone of the archway. So anything to add on that? Are you quite happy?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna add in that what Gary's talking about is he's talking about the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. Now, these are the Earth's northernmost and southernmost circles of latitude, where the sun can be seen directly either overhead or under. And this is approximately at 20, the Cancer's at 23 degrees. And so the astronomy of how we overlay the Earth, it's very interesting with this 23 degrees symbolism. But if you can imagine a tropic being like these lines, right? And so lines as the spirit arrives onto the earth through the sun gate onto the earth. Like it's yeah, both and then leave on the Tropic of Capricorn. These are the astrotheological ideas that I remember finding in the work of Santos Bonacci years and years ago with this early astrotheological research.
Yeah, yeah. And it's very interesting that the center with the rays is actually the sun. In both these charts, you have the sun in the middle with everything else coming out off it, in the symbolism that we're looking at. So, yeah. Thank you for your clarification, Meten.
Yeah, yeah.
So, so this is the Royal Arch that I talk about. And here we can see the capstone. which is Cancer, where we would come in. And we have one, two, three, four, five, six, seven major planets or signs that make up the
The arc.
heaven, the arch. You know, um, again, I've got the symbolism behind me fundamentally that I've got the two arches with somebody trying to, with the Pthumerian trying to escape out of the realm. You know, um, the two pillars, the twin pillars, are representations of a doorway. And remember, Janus is the god of the doorways from one place to another. So when you go over the threshold of somewhere, you're going from one place to another place. That's a representation of Janus. Um, the moon and the sun are actually representations of Janus, and we'll get into that a little later. Um, we also have a further seven stars. Now, this seven could be the representation of the Pleiades and the seven sisters. I'm not entirely sure on that one, but it's very interesting. Um, but the black and white Masonic floor, black is 11 and white is 11. And so this is the 1111. It's a portal again, and it all represents Janus. Now this is a, a drawing, and here we have Janus in the twin faces. One is the moon, and the other is the sun. It's the duality, and we see it here.
So interesting because it's like two suns, or you're saying sun and moon?
Yeah. So the reason why I did one on we are going to be touching on Moses as well again, but I did one on Moses, and Moses was always depicted with horns, and all the old depictions show him with horns because Moses was a moon worshipper and he was in charge of the cult of the moon worship. And the symbolism is the crescent moon gives the horns, but that also links in to the bull symbolism with the horns and the heifer that we see even today with this kind of symbolic thing. And that's why Moloch and Baal and even Peter Pan, when Peter Pan was first drawn, Peter Pan has horns because Pan is pansexual, which is Janus, which is the duality of male and female within the same.
Yeah.
So, it really is quite deep, and it's quite interesting. And we often get the moon depicted with a circle and a face inside it. So there's actually a face inside the moon.
Yeah, we're gonna
So
see this imagery again and again. Me and Gary were going over it. It's fascinating because obviously it's a crescent moon face,
yeah,
but it's right there in front of the sun or overlaid with a sun. Yeah,
it's almost like a black sun, isn't it? The
yeah,
moon is almost a black sun with the
symbolically. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, and it's very. I mean, there's a lot more layer. There's many more layers to this, but fundamentally, we're talking about some very interesting concepts. You know, and we got the cornucopia here. And what does the cornucopia represent? It represents the harvest. And who's the god of the harvest? Janus.
and what is and I mean, and many of the primitivists, I should say, as well as not just primitivism, but just a return to nature ideas, or always say that it was agriculture, it was agricultural times when control began on this planet, on this earth.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
we see that symbolism over and over and over again, the harvest and what is reaped. And it's the beginning of agriculture. The work of John Cerzan goes deep into this, with how we lost touch with the earth, with respecting the earth, right around the times of agriculture.
yeah. But it's
Not
very
all,
interesting what you said. We reap what we sow. and the cornucopia is what we put in, what we reap, what we sow, and that's the Grim Reaper, which is Chronos of time, because it takes time for a crop to grow, and then it's reaped by the reaper, and that's a symbolization of our lives. We're born, we live, and then we die, and so that's why we see the Grim Reaper, and all of that is Janus. It's all Janus symbology.
So it sounds like the frame of control of the archontic forces could have perhaps really started around that time, or at least symbolically, metaphorically began around that time when all this realm became just a cycle or circle of seasons, but
Yeah,
seasons in a controlled way as is presented.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's very very interesting. Very very interesting. Um, now
Oh,
it's
I'm
very
going to add something else real quick. If
yeah.
we go back to the image before, if you can go back to the images, those
This one
images, the one where we had the seven stars,
here on the
yeah,
Royal Arch. Yeah,
that could also be the seven stars of Orion's belt. Because remember, Sirius is really strong symbolism with with the Masons. So it's another thing to keep in mind because we have seven stars there on top, and then we have an eighth one right underneath it. And so yeah, so just wanted to add that in.
yeah. Good spot. Good call. I mean, there's so many multiple layers, and seven's very important in Masonic lodges as well. And the seven represents seven layers of or seven steps up. So I think you go three, and then you go seven. So in the Masonic lodge, you do the first three steps, and then the next is seven. So from my memory, anyway, from what I looked at a while ago. But again, I've not looked into it too deeply because you can fall down these rabbit holes and go nowhere very, very quickly. You know, very quickly. So did ancient civilizations know our solar system? Well, of course they did. But what we must also be mindful of is at this point is is that our atmosphere was not always the same. And we used to have at times and periods something called a vapor canopy. And during a vapor canopy, the sun would not have been able to be seen. But at night time, the moon and the planets, and certainly all the wandering stars, would have been very, very, very important and would have been the main light system. The reason why that we would have been almost nocturnal, which is why we still have nocturnal animals to this day in Australia, because they would have always been out at night because the daytime it would have been darker because the sun would have given them a very, if you can imagine the sun rays hitting a cloud of vapor and ash and water, it would have just bounced straight off and it would have been a very strange light. But at night time, because the light wasn't so intense, it would have then magnified what would happen and the moon would have been much, much brighter. So, which is why we get the moon worship with Moses and where we get the horns kind of symbology from. So we have to remember it was a different time as well. And this does explain some of the stuff that we're talking about. However, in Mesopotamia, it's very clear that they have seven luminaries. In India, there are seven, and in Egypt, there are seven. But we
And
also
again,
appear to have,
so sorry to interrupt you, Gary. Um, and I was going to say for each of those seven, again, we have this, we could see it either as the seven sisters of the Pleiades or the seven stars of the Orion constellation, with Sirius being the eighth below. But whereas in the prior pictures we had Sirius below, in this one we just have the seven in each of them, unless the archetypal figures here are representative of Sirius.
hmm. But what's very interesting as well is when you look at all these three images, you could literally overlay them and they're identical in their positioning.
Yeah, true.
And that that's beyond coincidence. I could draw seven dots on the circle. I know it's circled, but if I drew seven dots and you drew seven dots, they would not be in the same position. The fact that these have correlate, you can see clearly that the middle star representation is to one side, is to one side, is to one side. There is a clear intent and a clear mindfulness in the positioning of this image and where it is within what they were doing.
Mm.
So what it actually represents, I'm not sure. It could be the Seven Sisters, it could be Orion, it could be the seven wandering planets of a luminary, which would have been the main light potentially at night time. I don't know. I haven't done enough research. And again, there's so much misinformation out there. It's very difficult to prove one way or the other anyway, isn't it? You know, you,
Yeah.
you can go
But
down blind rabbit holes again.
if it's the seven stars of the Orion constellation, then there could be Egyptian symbolism with it being the seven stars of Osiris. Because sometimes you could create a whole pantheon out of that, Horus, as we were talking about this, Horus and Osiris and Isis, you know what I mean? The whole Egyptian
Yeah,
pantheon has been
yeah.
so overlaid symbolically with the star systems and the constellations.
I mean, fundamentally, Mesopotamia was not too far away from Egypt, you know, and you know, but India is. And for me, the one that's like, oh wow, is the Indian one, because for that to be the same as these two, I mean, these two could have been done by the same kind of cultural um, people, but the fact that it's in India, which is a fair way away from there, means that there is something far more um, realm wide going on in this kind of context. So, so these two are quite interesting, and this one I find particularly interesting is the signs as Greek gods, because many of these Greek gods are other names for Egyptian gods or Mesopotamian gods or um, gods pre that. So we really are looking at a hodgepodge of names that create this. But when we start looking at Ares, the god of war and violence, okay, now during Roman times, the Romans would walk through one archway during wartime and another archway during peacetime, and that they would enter and exit Roman cities
Yeah.
either one way or the other, because it was to bless Janus and give themselves good luck. And the war is a beginning of something to create an end. So again, Janus has got his fingers over that one, Taurus being the bull, great, but it's the goddess of the harvest and growth. We've already looked at very much so the cornucopia and the Grim Reaper and that symbology. Um, Gemini, god of communication and travel. Well, the Romans would, um, before going on the journey, would obviously pay homage to Janus, because a journey beginning is a beginning of something. And again, beginnings and endings. So if you're about to start something, you start something because Janus, they would, obviously give blessings to Janus for the beginning of a travel or movement. Cancer, goddess of marriage and family. We know Janus is involved in weddings, funerals, births, as family. Okay. Leo with Apollo, the god of sun, music, and poetry. Well, Apollo being the sun god and the sun, Janus is very much connected to the sun in many, many ways and is part of the duality of that. And so, and Leo also connects to, as we'll see later, um, other deities that are connected to Janus as well. Virgo, the moon goddess. Well, we know that Janus is the god of the moon with Diana. It was Ionis and Iona, and Iona changed to Diana in later years. And when we have the 50-50 moon, where with the crescent with one thing another, that's called a Diana moon. And that's Janus. It's the two faces. Um, Libra, goddess of love and beauty. Well, love is a beginning, and beauty, you know, bit of a stretch, but I'm sure um, Janus has got his fingers in that one as well. Scorpio, god of the underworld. Well, Janus has definitely got connections with the underworld and the dead because Janus is the Grim Reaper. And as in Kronos, your time runs out. We have the Grim Reaper symbolization, and that's that. Sagittarius is Zeus. Now, Zeus is definitely connected to Janus and is the god of lightning and weather. Thunderbolts with Zeus is definitely connected with Janus, and we'll go into that in a little bit of time. Um, Capricorn, goddess of wisdom and knowledge. Well, that's a really interesting one because when we're looking at knowledge and such like, this goes back to the Black Cube cult, which is also Janus. And as we progress in our knowledge, we go through doorways or we go through stages in our lives that take us to another level. And as soon as we go to a different level, that level or that journey is Janus again. Um, Aquarius is the god of the sea and floods, and Poseidon. Again, there is symbolization of Janus with water. Um, Again, it's not quite as strong as I'm not going to put it out so strong, but Pisces, the goddess of health, um, hearth, hearth and home. I'm not sure that's a misspell. Um, but the home, when you go into your house, you go through the threshold. You go into one place to another, from the inside to the outside. So this again is Janus symbology. Um, any ideas or thoughts on that one there? I know I've gone on a bit with that one, Tim.
No, it's just showing all this, it's showing all the signs and then the god associated with them, which is interesting. The Greek god, the specific Greek gods associated.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And obviously, if I just move us, woo, look at that, folks. Um, we have Aries and the gods, Taurus, which is Venus, and Gemini, which is Mercury, Hermes, Cancer. You know, Diana. Look, see the moon,
Mhm.
Cancer, the crescent moon called a Diana moon. Leo, Apollo, the sun. You know, and Apollo is Sol. Apollo is also Hermes. Yeah, what is it? Not Hermes. Helios is the sun, um, as well as Lucifer Lightbringer is the sun, and these are all connections to Janus in different guises and different layers of time when different symbology has been created to reignite the energy of that requirement. So hopefully, guys, that makes a bit of sense to you all. There we go. We'll put us up there. But Now, this is a really, really interesting one. We're talking around 2500 BC here. So we're going right back in time. We're going back in time to, I think Enki was around 2300 BC. So this is the time of Enki and Lil and the 200 watchers, children, and lots of very interesting times. But what we have on this relief here, which is blown up in this box, is very interesting. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 planets within a star, which is a pyramid, two pyramids interlocking,
A Merkaba.
which we'll get onto later. But the fact is that we have 12. Now, is that 12 disciples? Is it 12 signs in one? At that point, was there a sun? Were we under a vapor canopy? Why we only have 12? I'm unsure. But certainly, this depicts planetary or planets, in my view. What's your view on that one, Meten?
That's fascinating. I don't know what that would symbolize, being that it's 12. I'm not sure. But I know that's the two stars overlaid is something that a lot of the early psychic schools would utilize, where you'd visualize a pyramid coming down and a pyramid going up. And then that would, in a sense, create a Merkaba. Some schools would talk about spinning it. And
Yeah.
with a plant with a symbol in the center, like a circle, kind of like a planet, it almost looks like control over an Earth or a planet in a way.
And that's my feeling as well. I think that we're talking about a control mechanism within here. And the reason why I say that is because of this. Now, this is Enki, but the guy I want to talk about is Ishmud. Because Ishmud, if we go down a bit, oh, look at that. Two-faced God.
I know that's such a amazing find that you found that, especially in the ancient kind of Sumerian and Akkadian texts. Like that's like because that's pre-Roman god Janus, right? And then
Yes,
here
it's
it's saying no, this is
pre-Roman.
yeah, and it's saying it's giving it a different name and saying this is a Sumerian deity named Isimud, or however you pronounce
Yeah,
it. So
yeah,
that's
Ishmud. Yeah,
wow, that's pretty interesting because it's right there. There's the symbolism. It's
yeah. It's in our face. And Janus is portrayed as a two-faced god. And the thing is, when I've looked into Ishmud or Ismud, whatever you want to say, dyslexia is a wonderful thing for mispronouncing. But when I've looked into Ismud, no one knows where he comes from. He
wow,
just appeared as Enki's consult and advisor. Now,
interesting.
is
Very
is
interesting.
it any wonder that the Anunnaki got a bad rap if somebody as potentially dark and demonic, and let's be fair, Janus has is when we're talking about Moloch and Baal, we're not talking about a friendly character at all, and they are directly connected to Janus. But here, Janus is called Ismud and is closely connected within the ancient Sumerian gods and the control mechanism, and he is an advisor, one of the closest advisors.
Yep, exactly. Right. That's why it's like even more disturbing and gives
Yeah,
even more just structure and evidence for your case that Janus is, what's the word for it? Like Janus is
he's the god of this realm. He's the puppet master of this realm.
and also plain in what is it, in plain sight, like
Yeah,
hidden in plain
he's
sight,
hiding in plain sight.
the
Yeah,
manifestation of many, many different types of faces.
yeah, because he has reinvented himself, or this energy has reinvented itself throughout time. And I believe our current zodiac system is not demonic. It's not a bad thing at all. It's an observable thing that has an effect on us. But those effects on us, I believe, stem back from the Janus energies that have been here for a very, very long time. And the fact that the Anunnaki around this period of time were said to be doing cloning tests and were around this period of time that they created us as humans in our current form. Well, Janus is standing there totally it depicted as clear as day, you know, and it's a Janus like heads of gods related to Hermes have been found in Greece, perhaps suggesting a compound god. So even Hermes, Hermes, Hermes is connected to Janus. He reinvents himself in every single age to pull the strings of the hidden hand.
Wow.
And it's mind blowing, isn't it? You know,
It is.
I mean, in here they're saying, oh, however, Ishmad was not a god of doorways, so it can't be Janus. I mean, what a joke. What a joke. How do they know he wasn't a god of doorways from 2300 BC quite era? You know what I mean? You know, unlike Janus, however, Ishmad was not a god of doorways. Instead, he's a messenger of Enki. He wasn't a messenger, he was an advisor to Enki.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're just narrating it as they will, as they want, you know. It's the real authority or energy of that being what it was back then. I don't, as we know, it's like it's just different faces presenting through different myths and histories.
But what I find very interesting is we have a bird here. It's clearly a bird. We have a bull with the horns. That's a bull. Sure, it's a bull with horns, and I think that's Enki stepping on the bull. There's a lot going on here. It means a lot. But my focus has been the twin-headed god, Janus, that sat there in plain sight since 2300 BC. And was he there before? What role did he play in the Adam and Eve stories? Because I'm convinced that this god is that old, it's been around. It's a creator god. Now, the bird is very, very interesting because we see the bird here, and now we're seeing this symbolization of our zodiac system. This is mind blowing because this is Janus as the bird, because we have the twin keys crossed. Remember, Janus is always depicted generally with a key in his hand or twin keys like the Vatican. So the Vatican has two keys crossed. It means the Vatican or the Roman Catholic Church worships Janus. And here we have a depiction. I don't know how old it is, but it's fairly old. Of all the star signs or all the zodiac signs, sorry, with the letters going in, obviously meaning something, I'm not sure, but we have the bird standing on the cross keys on top of the world with I don't know if you can see that guys. I'll just move us out of the way, with the moon and the sun underneath the bird's wing under its control, because everything that that bird is on top of is in control of.
And it's interesting the symbolism of the cross of the keys, because the cross is usually symbolism of the earth, right? The cross with the circle, and then we see the earth right there underneath. And then again we see the sun, the two suns, but obviously the sun on the right is a crescent moon again. This time the
Yeah,
face is in the penumbra, the black area, the
yeah,
black sun area.
but it's fascinating. And something else that we have is we have fundamentally a kind of a circle with a cross, and that imagery of
Oh, like
a
an egg and a
circle,
cross. Yeah, the egg and the cross. Yeah.
egg and the cross, but the egg and the cross is a representation of abyss or abyss, which is the demonic god of chaos, and that is something that kings hold to this day. They hold a round scepter or ball with the cross on.
That's such a trip, man, because it's almost like saying that the royalty lines are connected to specific demonic entities. Like that's the source of their power, or their worship, or their control, or the beings that manifest through them, right? They become just
Yeah,
vessels. So then royalty becomes just a frame for that which visits upon this realm, that which and enter like a liminal space where something enters in through. And so these
and it
bloodlines are just like, openings, open
yeah,
portals,
and isn't
or
Janus the god
vortex.
of actors? And so he's the puppet master almost, and he can control the key figures in charge, and they get what they want because they get wealth and prestige and ego all the time that they're being played by the hidden hand, you know. But also we have the bird. Now, in America, this could be a phoenix fundamentally, but in America before 1901, the sigil was a phoenix, and in 1901 it was changed, or 1902 it was changed to the eagle. But we how many images of birds do we see in royal crests and crowns across the world? And it's quite clear here that this particular bird is Janus because it holds the keys, the cross keys, and also the cross represents Janus as well because X is actually in numerology one. And so when Janus is male and male, it's XX, which is one and one. And when Janus is X and Y, believe it or not, Y is one as well. Because I couldn't believe it. I did the search. What's the number representation of Y? If X is one and it came up Y is one. And so we get the 1111, which is the black and the white, which is the 11 and 11. It's the duality again. And what do we see with the bird? We see the left wing and the right wing, and it's a devise. And so what we fundamentally see is almost the number eight again within the bird, because the bird's body is the control mechanism to the left and right wing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's major symbolism for both sides of the same left, right, left wing, right wing, two different wings of the same bird, right?
Who controls the body? Who is the body?
Janus.
Very interesting. Very, but the fact that the zodiac signs are in on this very, very clearly, undeniably, for
Showing
me,
that
links
that it's the
Janus.
map, that it's the energetic and frequency map of this realm. And us who are astrologers are just translating the symbolism. It's just the sky clock. We're just translating the symbolism of what is occurring through its interaction and the
Yeah,
frequency resonance that it's creating all the time. And
yeah,
each planet has a light, and that light's a frequency, and it's always moving through us.
really interesting, isn't it? Really interesting because because the symbology, they always have to show us, they always have to tell us, and the best way that they can do it is in via symbology. And again at the top, if I just move, I've got a silly thing there. At the top, what's it got in its beak? It's got a laurel, part of a laurel, undergrowth, vegetation. Is that, has it picked that? Has it harvested?
Hmm.
The Grim Reaper, Janus's Kronos. See the other thing as well, which Janus being Kronos, time, the Grim Reaper, time, is the zodiac signs are also a clock because they run throughout the year, and it's something we would follow. Oh, my birthday's in August. I'm a Leo. And so when August comes up, I know it's Leo's time. I know the symbology of Leo as such as a basic thing, you know, what Leo the lion represents and everything else like that. It's that overlay of the illusion of time being linear via this mechanism. It's just another overlay of an overlay of a month, a year, and this supports that kind of symbolic symbolism of us aging.
Yeah, Gary and I were talking about this. It's fascinating because this is like some kind of intermediary grid that's put on the Earth. And that grid slows down or speeds up or manipulates time and space and our experience in time and space. And so this whole astrological, celestial, whatever it is, grid is an energy field overlaid over our spirit as we experience it. It's like a 3D, third density realm. But it's like somehow that structure in itself, we're we're just following its cycle. And we're like, okay, we're supposed to age. Okay, so we age. Okay, we're supposed to be here. We're not supposed to travel into different densities or dimensions. Of course, some of us have figured that out, how to go in and out of this realm and do so. But this is
But
the
when you,
overall structure.
yeah, yeah, and when you put the moon and the sun in, because they're timekeepers as well. The moon has a cycle every 28 days. The sun comes up and goes down every day. And these are more dimensional layers of the overlay of what we're observing via the zodiac signs and how it all interlinks with us with this energetic realm that we live in that drives us and makes us do certain things via the human design, which is the internal part.
Interesting.
So yeah, this was really interesting. I did actually show Meten another symbol, which was a globe, and round the globe was all the signs. I haven't put it up on this particular presentation, but again, it showed the almost a wrap or control mechanism of a band around a round ball, which was quite fascinating. So, as we can see, the zodiac signs have got far more going on than we can really kind of imagine. And it's far deeper than we can imagine. And the symbolism of what's going on is very interesting. You know, Sagittarius is Apollo, because Apollo is Apollo Pharmakia, who shoots the bow and arrow, the poison arrows. And when we look at it, this is going to be a head banger, everyone. Wasn't it December when we all got kind of locked down, or December was when um, the COVID narrative came out? I'm pretty sure it was December with
December?
Sagittarius.
Oh,
Yeah,
prior to the March 13th or 11th,
yeah.
March 11th.
But what I think it was announced something like on the end of December, something or mid-December, something like that. And then we were locked down later, weren't we?
Yeah, that was later on. That was months later. But there was, yeah, there was news of it coming up in the months prior.
Yeah. And those, I think that news or the breaking of this kind of thing happened around December from my memory, which when we look at the symbology is Apollo, which
Interesting.
links into
I know
Apollo
there was a
Farm of Gaia.
planetary transit in the Scorpio into gate 44, and I know the four is like contagion, the number four in human design, and so there's some symbolism around that too, the four as well as that Scorpio gate. But there's lots of symbolism around that time for beginning something.
Yeah, yeah. But it's fascinating, isn't it? It really is fascinating. Now, this is just going to be a bit quicker. Just to link in a few of what I've been saying about Baal, the bull, and who people are connected to. Now, this is Hadad, and Hadad is actually a representation of um, Zeus or Janus, um, Jupiter, Horus. How they use the same imagery and the same kind of um, layers. So what we're talking about is layers. Okay, so fundamentally, this is all the same people, all the same person. And as we were talking about the layers, how they reinvent and come up with different people, different backstories, but fundamentally, we're talking about the same energies going all the way through and the same entities going all the way through. You know,
Yeah,
very, very interesting. You know, it, and again, we know who Baal is. We know what Baal's about. We know what Moloch's about. And the fact that it's connected to Zeus and Jupiter is very, very interesting. And again, all of our history going back is a, how can I put it? It's a reinventing of the same story. Now, when we talk about the same story as in religion, I think there's something like 27 stories of the Son of God being born to a virgin, um, with the virgin birth and the 12 disciples and all that. There is multiple layers of these stories throughout time. And we have this in, I believe, everything that we see with all these names. They change the names, but the energy is the same.
yeah, well said. Nothing out there.
So this is the hexagon of Solomon. This is the tabernacle of Moloch, which is the bull, the horned, and this is Metatron's cube or the Merkaba. And we can see throughout time the connection. It's very interesting that when we take these two images, you know, we've got one, two, three, four, five, six, one, two, three, four, five, six, and then we have a central point. And so you could almost say that in the center would be the sun, and on the outside are the 12 disciples, or the 12 planets of the zodiac centering around the sun. And here we have the cross, and that to me looks like a key. I could be wrong.
That could be Earth symbolism with the key
It could as
inside the
well.
Merkaba. And
But
you
with
said something
Omega,
about, you
yeah.
said
But
something
with,
about the hexagram of Solomon as the soul of man.
yeah, it's the soul of man, and I think it's the shackle, the lockdown of the soul of man, the hexagon, and I think that relates to our chakra system as well, which is all part of the Fibonacci sequence, which I've spoken about a lot, and I think it all interlinks. It's all part of the one. Because when I'm looking at stuff, I go off into these little tangents, as you can imagine, and all this symbology comes in as I'm following the spider's webs. So
There was a book that came out in the 70s, a Russian book called the Depth Books. And those books talked about how the chakra systems are like prisons within our biology of energy that contain and constrict us. So, yeah, fascinating ideas.
yeah, yeah, and again, I have briefly touched this on previous presentations, but yeah, and again, this symbology is used by the Freemasons. But Star of Rembrandt, and when we go to that, is Rembrandt Moloch, and Moloch was a Canaanite deity associated with child. I'm not going to say the word, and Rembrandt represents the star god. You know, and we also have Yahweh mentioned, and this is how my research goes, because it's all the same deities all mixed up to create a soup. It's multiple layers. And again, I said I was going to talk about Leo and the representation of Leo, the lion. Well, Horus is represented in many ways, and one of them is his bird head with the lion's body. But also on some representations, Horus has two horns, which could be seen as moon worship, couldn't it?
Yeah, that's right. The ancient lunar cults.
And it's the ancient lunar cults, you know. So very interesting where some of this comes from. So in Egypt, we got Akhenaten, and Akhenaten was the first Egyptian leader to go to monotheism, as in one god, um, which predates obviously the Christian religion by 1,400 years. But what we find, and what my research has shown me, is that Akhenaten was fundamentally kicked out of Egypt by his people because they would not accept one god, sun god. And this is imagery of Moses. There we see Moses with the horn. The
Yeah,
horns.
I haven't seen that before. That's interesting.
I did a show on it. Moses, oh God, I didn't know that. But Akhenaten is very, very closely linked to, and is almost certainly Moses, because they were both around exactly the same time. And he had to leave Egypt, cross the desert to then become Moses and reinvent himself.
You know, that whole story of Akhenaten. is very strange and alien because his whole monotheistic religion came with all these new kind of rituals and it was like it's almost like the rebirth of the parasitic system, like what he
Yeah,
represented. He was like strange and he had all this new symbolism and architecture. He wanted everything recreated and rebuilt,
yeah,
symbolism.
yeah.
And I don't think he was from here, whatever that being was or is. And it's
No,
obviously evident with the horns that that's
yeah,
that's not something human.
no, no, it's not. But Moses was head of a moon cult, apparently, worship. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But what we also do get with Moses in connection is Ezekiel. And the story is identical with Ezekiel. And we have a chariot, four wheeled, four faces, Janus, handing Ezekiel information. Now, I think the burning bush of Moses was Janus. Um, and Yahweh is certainly connected to Janus. And here, if I just move us down, we have the sun, and that's Yahweh. That's Yahweh's name in the sun. And this is this. So that's Yahweh, the god of the underworld, as the sun in this representation of Ezekiel. And we have Abraxas coming in to give Ezekiel information, which is exactly the same story as Moses. But what we also have is Janus representation of the four wheels is in the four faces connected in with Abraxas. And what's on Abraxas's back? A bird. There's a bird.
Oh, so the vision of Icicle, I don't know how to pronounce it, but the vision
Ezekiel. Yeah.
Ezekiel, his vision with the four faces, right, is a Janus vision. Wow,
Yeah.
that's
It's
a
got
trip.
to be because Abraxas is then represented as the four horsemen. Yeah. Riding the chariot with the four horsemen with the snakes. And I've got early imagery of Janus with as snakes holding the sickles for the harvest riding through. But this is the four horses potentially of the apocalypse, the four horses of the sun god, which would be Helios and Apollo, which is also the chariot in um, tarot cards. Because here we can clearly see Janus with the as the moon on the corners and the moon face.
I think it's a good time for me now to share real quick, Gary, if you'd allow the
Yep,
image I found watching the movie by the Italian director Pier Pasolini, who was a rebellious director and was looking to uncover a lot of the rituals of the elites. And so he did a film, this famous film called Solo, which I don't want to say too much about for those who know about this film.
it's called Solo,
Solo,
Soul.
Solo, 120 Days of Sodom. Is it? I think it's a subtitle. So it's kind of loosely based on the work of Marquis de Sade, who was a French writer and author, and but it's really just showing, showing as it goes. And so here's an image I
Oh,
took from the
bloody
film,
hell!
and it's a part of the ritual. It was right in the middle of the film, and there it is, one of the characters dressed up. I was showing this to Gary when I first took it. You got the laurel. I don't know if that's the laurel wreath, and then there's
Yep, yep,
here for the
yep,
moon or the sun, right? And then, well, you have both, right? You have the sun, an egg
yep.
above, an egg below. So you have the sun moon symbolism. And then you have on each side, you have this kind of It's multiple squares, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on each side. And then on the top headdress looks like 4 or 5. And then the two faces, but this time they're on the shoulder with a spiral, and they look like ram in symbolism, and
Janus
Janus symbolism.
symbolism. Yeah,
Yeah, and then there's interesting, there's like flowers from the earth coming up on each side. And you
yeah.
got the red
Lily.
and black, which is sorcerer symbolism usually.
Isn't the lily a sign of death?
Yeah,
Lily,
that is
that
dark
particular
order.
lily, I think.
Yeah.
It's
And so
also interesting that he's got the
very,
necklace on, and the necklace is the cube. It's the black cube shape.
and it is a cube, and with a circle in the center from the side view. Yeah. And then the circle on top is a little different. It has like little almost spirals, almost like a flower.
Yeah, like rays coming off or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
or spinning, turning.
And there's
That,
something else behind. That's just kind of like a lever. Looks like a lever on the wall
well,
behind.
it's a door. What's behind him? A door. And what's Janus? The god of doors and doorways.
Mhm. Yeah, so I saw this right away in the film. That's it. That's what I was looking for.
Wow,
Pure Pasolini solo. There it is.
you could not make that up. Couldn't make it up. So when I've done a search about, the word Merkaba in Hebrew and chariot, it brings up Ezekiel of the Bible in connection with the chariot, which is very interesting. And it refers to the throne of the chariot or the chariot to ride an animal. But in other depictions, it talks about the chariot was created out of angels or cherubs, multiple beings, a conglomerate. But also, when you put chariot into Google, it comes straight up with the imagery of the Merkaba above, which is Fibonacci sequence 3D control mechanism.
It makes me wonder too if the tarot is not just a map of sigils of this realm, of the passages and then an energetic frequency, like realms that we are are stuck in. I don't want to say we're stuck in, but are like the kind of archontic space-time limitations that they
Yeah,
keep us in, you know?
I
Because
agree.
if the chariot card is the Merkaba, right? And the Merkaba is a part of this realm, then wow, then every card symbolism is representing some kind of sigil, some kind of third density,
Yeah.
realm or energy.
Well, I'm sure there's a reason why we've got four suits, and is each suit a different face of Janus and a different energy of Janus within that traveling and journey of the control of the beginning, the fool's journey, the full beginning of the journey would have to be Janus.
Wouldn't that be us? Aren't we the fool jumping into some realm?
Yeah, but as soon as we do that, we're going from one place to another. It's the beginning of a journey. And before you can start a journey, you have to give paints to Janus.
And of
That's
course
how the Romans did it.
the four suits are, all the four elements that make up this realm according to Western magical tradition and astrology, Western astrology. So then it'd be the same with the exit card, which is the 21, the Eon. Well, full is 0, right? We have 1 and 21. And
Yeah,
the 0 card, so it's both the beginning and the ending.
yeah. And again, let's make this very clear. I'm not saying tarot cards are demonic in any way, shape, or form. They're an amazing tool and I use them. But it's very interesting that the symbology of the rider waite stuff seems to have connotations into ancient or energies, which would make sense because if you wanted to piggyback off something to see what was going to happen, you would need some of that symbology, some of that energy in it to be able to read from that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, interesting.
You know, I personally love tarot cards, and I'm not saying they're demonic or bad in any way, shape, or form, and nor am I obviously the zodiac. What we're doing is showing you how the multiple layers of these things, these energies, all interlink almost, connect.
And similar could be said for since it's an overlay, it's these are all maps that are being utilized, whether it's the 10 Sephirot of the Kabbalah or even the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching, or even, you can get into the mazes of the Tibetan Buddhists, the mazes that they draw on the sand, right? They're
Yeah,
drawing the astral. That's what they're really doing. They're layering this realm when they do their little sand. The term is not mazes. There's another term for it. It's I have a little book on it. What is it? It's mandalas. Like they're
mandalas.
mandalas,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
they're like
yeah.
little mazes. Like those are also like maps, right? That they're creating. And as they, and everyone says, okay, well, why do they wipe up all the sand when it's done? It's because it's already been,
Done.
it's
Yeah,
already done. It's already here now,
yeah. It's created. The end. It's been created. Yeah,
That's fascinating.
yeah. I mean, these are depictions of Janus. As you can see, four-faced, two-faced. Um, appears that some kind of connection with masonry or building ends, which is quite fascinating. Um, but there's many, many different shapes and sizes and faces of Janus. Um, always holding the key um, and the staff. The staff obviously turns into um, a scythe at points. And one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. Golden crown with seven, which is always quite often. You often get 7 points, and the golden crown is corona. So, and there we go. Look, the beginning of the month is a mirror offered to sacrifice to Janus, the so or she lamb to Jano. So they would, you know, the lamb, aren't we the lambs? Sacrifice, beginning of the month, particularly the first. And then we have the beginning of the day, and the morning belongs to Janus. Morning. And we know in language that morning is death. We're in mourning. So when we awake, we're in awake in the morning, which belongs to Janus. Then men start their daily activities, the beginning, starting, and businesses. He's called Pater or Peter, which is the father or the morning father. And what's the morning father or the morning star? It's the sun that brings us up because he's a solar deity. And a solar deity means it must be a sun or a luminary that comes up in the morning. And there's only one solar deity that I'm aware that comes up every morning that belongs, and that's the sun.
Venus has its rising as well.
Does it?
Mhm.
Every morning.
Well, the Venus star point has two different positions. It has its morning positions and its night positions. So morning is Pallas Athena, and then night is Aphrodite. And so
Ah,
Venus does have a type of rising, and the Venus star point is related to the sun cycle. It's a 7 year, 7 or 8 year cycle where it creates a special star, in its cycle. So it's fascinating. But anyways, yeah, like this is a trip, how you said we're in mourning when we awake. morning and then awake.
because we're in a dream, aren't we? It's just another layer of the dream, isn't it? Are we really here? Um, we've been watching Inception. Our little group's been watching
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Inception, and we also watched Severance as well. But it's the multiple layers of, particularly in Inception. If you guys have ever watched a film, a guy goes into people's dreams. They can go multiple layers deeply into dreams, into different realities, create realities, and it's very very interesting that one of the nursery rhymes that we get is row 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 your boat merrily down the stream, merrily merrily merrily, life is but a dream.
These are all nested narratives that play with this concept that Gary is talking about. I mean, we're talking about the film Existence, the 13th Floor, the game, obviously the Matrix. Um, what else? There's a lot of them. Inception, obviously, Severance as well, plays with transition from different realms, inner worlds, outer worlds, underworlds, overworlds, however you want to look at it. And yeah, it's all just like variations of this idea that we're in some kind of dream machine. I don't know how else to put it. The film that fascinates me most is the Cube films, because in the Cube films, like you're actually in a machine that's a giant cube that's constantly shifting its position. And I love it because it has the whole analogy that George Lucas talked about, which is we're all imprisoned with the doors wide open. And in that film, every room opens at a particular point and juncture in time. And so,
And
yeah,
wouldn't that be a representation of the planets? And would not that be a representation of the human design?
and clockwork, right? Exactly. And there's symbols all over that film, as well as like a certain sequence. And they go through the process of saying, oh, it must be Fibonacci sequence, these numbers. Oh, no, it's a different sequence. And so they're going through the process like we do, like we're doing here, of attempting to understand what kind of machinations are happening in our frequency realm and to discover what's occurring.
But this screen I've just put on, I mean, according to Marcabus, who cites Nigerius Phyllis and Cicero, Janus and Diana, are a pair of divinities worshipped as Apollo, or the sun, and the moon, where Janus receives sacrifices before all the others, because through him is apparent the way of access to the desired deity. He's the gatekeeper, he's the janitor, remember? And the Diana moon is Janus, male and female, the X and Y.
Yeah, it's right there. It's all there. The metaphor that you and I've been playing with, which is if all these archontic deities are actors, then Janus can channel himself into any one of them.
Yeah. And that's the key point. You just hit nail on the head, Meten. Janus is the Father. The Lord's Prayer is Our Father who art in heaven. Janus is the God of heaven and earth and everything around it and everything in it. The Lord's Prayer is a prayer to Janus. Mind blowing, isn't it?
Especially how it's just promoted endlessly in film. It's just entrenched in our programming. And it's why the religions just have such a strong hold on us. Because even those who are like who escape, you know, the trap of the religions, many of us will still use that terminology, and we'll be confronted and oh, you still believe in God, of course, do you believe in God? and just, all of it is just severe, repetitive programming. Do you believe? To believe something is an act of will and nothing more.
Yeah, yeah,
Where,
mm,
where's knowledge and knowing in that? Where's
yeah.
wisdom in that? There is none.
No,
It's just an
I,
act of,
I mean, we're kind of finishing up with this again, and I think we've made our point that when we're talking about the god of music, the goddess of, the god of, you know, I mean, Hades, the god of the underworld and the dead. Well, Vatica is the female version of the god of the underworld, and that's what the Vatican is named after. Vatica, the goddess of the underworld.
what's that? How do you spell that term?
What Vatica? It's a lady with horns, and so the Vatican is named after Vatica, the goddess of the underworld.
Oh yeah,
Google it.
the Etruscan goddess, I don't know how to pronounce that, Etruscan goddess Vatica. Wow. Who guards the city of the dead or necropolis where the Vatican stands today.
And
Interesting.
remember, the Vatican sigil is two cross keys,
Yeah,
and
that
Yahweh escaped from the underworld and came up to be the god of this world, this realm, who's associated with Satan. And I could carry on. I'm not going to, but I could really, because all of what we're talking about is the same energy, the same, just different names to trick us, to deceive us. And why do they use multiple names and why do they use multiple deceptions? Because divide and rule, divide and conquer. Because while we're all looking at different directions, no one's got
all,
their eyes on the prize.
yeah, it's all the same story, just endless versions of it to confuse and conflate.
And there we go, guys. That's the end of my slideshow.
All right, thanks so much, Gary. That was great. We got some interesting ideas from all these new assessments of Janus. That Sumerian version, what's that name of that figure again?
Um, is mad, isn't it? Ismid is mad, something like
Isn't
that. Yeah,
Yeah, that was a find right there. Because how
I
many
know.
heard of that, or attempted to research deeper? And it looks like you came to a wall, right? You couldn't go any deeper with that.
No, because all everything just says that this character with two faces turned up. There's no family. There's no offspring. There's nothing. He just turned up. Was Enki's, advisor. You know, confidant. Was with him all the time. But it makes you wonder: was he Enki's controller? Was that two-faced God controlling and had that two-faced God taken over, the Anunnaki at that point to change them from the beneficial things I think they first came here as the 200 Watchers to then turn them into the fallen angels? Because I firmly believe that Janus is the Fibonacci sequence, which is death, rot, and decay. And anything that has death, rot, and decay will eventually turn bad.
As opposed to the crystal code, which is
As
not an
opposed to,
autoporous, which is not
yeah,
stuck feeding on
no,
itself, which is
no.
something that spirals outwards.
And it has positive and negative ions within it or charge, so it can grow constantly from its own energy. I mean, there's a Buddhist, and again, I forget the names. Do apologize. A friend of mine sent me the videos, and I've watched one of the videos, and it's fascinating. And one of the main Buddhist characters got enlightenment through the lotus flower, and the lotus flower is actually the crystalline code. And he got enlightenment, and he became, all powerful almost. And he actually put Janus and the demonics into chains and he locked them up. And this is in Buddhist culture. Now, I think that due to the fact that he was locking up the Fibonacci sequence would always collapse upon itself, create decay, and they would always find a way to escape. And so we're currently in the realm where we had the Chris code that was on top, Mother Gaia, that was then retaken back over and put down, which is what we see in the art in of the first image that we see. It's really quite deep. There's so many multiple layers to this and different vantage points. It's quite fascinating.
Gary and I were talking about this prior to getting on, and I was mentioning a book by the science fiction author Robert Zelazny, who did a novel in the 60s called The Lord of Light, which had very similar ideas to like this world being taken over and also being able to bind all these forces. And it was both in The Lord of Light, and then he had a second novel after that. He has a whole, I mean, many other novels and series, but the particular works that I read was The Lord of Light, and then there was a second one, which I'm trying to find right now. I can't remember the name of, but it was the book after that. And I'm sure it's pretty easily found for those interested. But it was very similar ideas to what Gary is describing about. In that book, I think he was using the pantheon of the Hindu gods. But it was very similar ideas, the binding these forces that attempted to take over.
Yeah, it's fascinating, fascinating. Well, it's been an amazing chat, and you know, thank you very much, Meten, for
Thank
your
you, Gary.
knowledge and your background, and that it's been awesome, and it's certainly gonna make many of the Femi think twice about what they're looking at, and again, let's reiterate: the zodiac signs are not demonic. The tarot cards are not demonic. Using the pendulum is not demonic. These are just ways in which we can observe the energy affecting us and look potentially into the future with the tarot cards of the energy that is around us to try and give us a bit of a head start and even up the game a bit.
All right, Gary, thanks so much.
Blessings. Thank you, Meten. So
Mm.
everybody, please like, share, and subscribe to Meten of Plutonic Planes. And please like, share, and subscribe to myself, Gary, at Alternative Interactions. Thank you very much, everybody. Love, light, and blessings. Bye bye.